people think that Bitcoin has gotten too expensive. And I say expensive compared to what? It's certainly expensive to where it was a few months ago at 50 or 60,000, but it's so cheap compared to where it will be in a year or in 5 years from now. I would say maybe within a year, certainly within 24 months, the banks will be custodying Bitcoin and potentially even selling Bitcoin. We're talking about institutional FOMO, and we're talking about sovereign nation state FOMO coming in. We're setting up for fireworks here.
Mark Moss predicts that Bitcoin's price will soar in the next 12 to 24 months as institutional and national interest grows. While its price might seem high now, Moss sees it as cheap compared to its future potential. He expects banks to adopt Bitcoin, with even nations and major companies getting on board. Under a Trump administration, Bitcoin could see even faster adoption, with the US potentially establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve to enhance financial stability. Make sure to watch this next clip where Mark Moss explains that as global interest rises, Bitcoin's price is set to skyrocket. Also, if you enjoy listening to crypto-related content, please show your support by liking and subscribing to this channel by following the link in my bio. And get access to my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox. Each newsletter contains market intelligence, on-chain data and latest updates from experts in the crypto space. All of this is available completely free of charge. Signing up only takes a moment and you can always change your mind later on. Now back over to Mark Moss.
A lot of people were disappointed in the price of Bitcoin because it was basically stuck in a range for like 6 months. There's a lot to say about that. One thing I would recommend, I constantly try to remind people of is, so this was, August, September-ish, right? Before the price really started moving, is I said, look, it hasn't gone anywhere in 6 months, but it's up 150% in 12 months. Like, that's pretty dang good. Like, from a macro investor like me who's been doing this for a really long time, 100%, 150% in 12 months is amazing. And so, number one, zoom out, man. Like, if you're expecting your assets to move inside of 6 months, like, you're just never going to make it. Another reason why they were getting disillusioned is because we saw the assets starting to pump. So the stock market was still holding up. Gold was taking off, making new all-time highs. We saw global liquidity going up, but yet Bitcoin wasn't moving. And typically Bitcoin is like this most sensitive asset. And a lot of times it starts to front run. It's like this canary in the coal mine, if you will. But Bitcoin was lagging the liquidity and the gold moves. And I made some videos and kind of broke down some charts and showed that there's, up to about a 6-month delay. And I think that's where we're at, right? Bitcoin caught up. It made its big move. It was a little bit behind the curve a little bit. And here we are. Yeah, we're blasting off. The gold demand is not because you and I are buying more gold jewelry, buying gold ounces for our safes. It is nation state demand. And really, that was a big driver of gold. And yes, to your point, it's going to be a massive driver for Bitcoin. I think I made an off the cuff video that went pretty viral, just saying like people are not bullish enough. I don't think the market has front run this, and that was like a week or two ago. But I do think the market is now catching up to this reality that we started to see this like institutional FOMO, if you will, back in 2021. And it's been going, and we are seeing the institutions starting to FOMO in. The problem is it takes a long time for the institutions to move, to change their fund mandates or the legal compliance, things like that. There's reasons why institutions can't move in because there hasn't been a functioning options market and things like that. But now we're starting to see this sovereign FOMO. And the key to what I was saying, why people aren't bullish enough, and I think they're just catching on, is because what we saw with El Salvador being one of the poorest countries in the world, when they adopted Bitcoin, it wasn't like they were influencing a lot of nations. Like, nobody's really paying attention to that. But what's happened in El Salvador since, right, turning their country around, taking care of crime, massive amounts of influx of investment capital coming in. And now at Bitcoin, when Bitcoin hits $100,000, El Salvador is able to pay off their IMF debt. It's never been done before. That doesn't happen. The IMF debts are strategically made in a way to keep those nations enslaved forever. And when they can't pay the debt, they just add more debt to pay the old debt. And so to pay off the IMF debt is insane. And now, again, they're not influencing the world, but they are influencing other small countries. So now Bukele has been meeting with other heads of small nations, Omar, Sudan, UAE, etc., and they're starting to move on Bitcoin. So we're seeing that. That's like the bottom-up approach. But if the United States, the global homogeneity, the US dollar, the reserve currency of the world, if they were to take on a strategic Bitcoin reserve, then every other nation is forced to do so. It's the way that game theory plays out. So in the world of investing, just like most of the world, it's competitive. And if a fund were to add a little bit of Bitcoin and outperform the other funds are forced to respond to that, which is what we're seeing in the institutional FOMO. But if the US does it, every other nation is forced to. We're talking G7 nations, G20 nations. I believe these other nations have figured this out. They didn't know what was going to happen on the election because obviously if Kamala won, that was not going to happen. But with Trump and RFK Jr. both running on this policy and a bill already submitted in and having a red wave through both the House and the Senate and the presidency, the likelihood of this going through is extremely high in my opinion. And the other nation states are starting to realize this, and word on the street is these nations are now FOMOing in.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe for news and expert predictions direct to your inbox.